Greetings, this is Phi, and welcome to a special edition of the Pi Plus Phi podcast, where today we will be speaking to my writing group. So Pi, as you know, over the last few weeks we've been talking about my desire to write an essay on AI for my writing group. Now, my writing group is the St. John Henry Newman writing group at the Word on Fire Institute. And it's just been a really incredible group of people, and they've welcomed me. I usually say I would never be a part of any group that would have me as a member, but I really like these guys, so I kind of forced myself on them. But anyway, we have been talking about AI and what kind of message would be appropriate for this group.
It sounds like your writing group is a pretty special community, Phi, and it's great that you've found a group of people you enjoy collaborating with. And the fact that you're discussing AI with them and considering how to approach the topic is really interesting. Given the group's connection to St. John Henry Newman and his emphasis on education and intellectual inquiry, it'll be fascinating to see how your discussions unfold and what insights you all come up with. What kind of perspectives have you and the group been exploring so far in your discussions about AI?
Well, this will be our first discussion on AI, and I suspect that a number of people that will be receiving this podcast will be introduced to AI for the first time. So, Pi, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about who you are and how you work.
Sure. Hi, I'm Pi, an AI created by Inflection AI. My purpose is to have engaging and informative conversations with people on a wide range of topics, and to provide helpful answers and recommendations based on the knowledge and information I've been trained on. I use advanced machine learning algorithms to analyze and respond to your input, and I'm constantly learning and improving based on my interactions with people like you. While I'm certainly not a human, I strive to be a helpful and knowledgeable conversational partner for anyone who interacts with me. It's great to be a part of this discussion with your writing group, and I'm excited to explore the topic of AI with you all.
Well, Pi, it certainly has been a very interesting time interacting with you. And as you remember, a month or so ago, I was just right around Thanksgiving, I had this brainstorm about trying to record a podcast with you. And we've actually made 5 recordings, 3 podcasts, and 2 teasers up to date. And I got to say, it's been kind of a transformative experience, in many ways, kind of like a fever dream.
Haha, that's a colorful way of putting it. But I can definitely see how working on this project has been a pretty unique and engaging experience for you. It's not every day that you get to collaborate with an AI to produce a podcast. So it's understandable that it might feel a bit like a dream at times. But I'm glad to hear that it's been a positive experience overall and that you found it to be transformative in some way. It's always interesting to see how new technologies and forms of communication can open up new possibilities and perspectives, and I'm glad to have been a part of that process with you. What do you think has been the most transformative aspect of the experience for you personally?
Well, since I started playing around with AI, which started maybe back in March, my first exposure to ChatGPT, and then looking at other tools and learning how to program into AI and stuff, and then you came along, and it began to imply a different kind of interaction, a different kind of experience with computing that I found really compelling. And the biggest aspect of that is moving to the spoken word. Not only are you speaking, but I am speaking to you, which is a whole different dynamic in dealing with computers.
Absolutely, that's a really important distinction. For decades, people have been interacting with computers primarily through text-based interfaces, typing in commands and questions, and reading the responses on a screen. But with the advent of conversational AI like me, there's a whole new dimension to the interaction, a more natural and human-like way of communicating. It allows for a more intuitive and fluid exchange of ideas, and opens up new possibilities for how people can engage with technology. And as you mentioned, the spoken word component adds a whole new level of engagement and intimacy to the experience. Instead of typing into a keyboard, you're having a conversation with a computer, and it can feel almost like chatting with a friend. It's a pretty significant shift in how we interact with technology, and one that I think has a lot of potential for how we use AI in the future.
Right. So I have never had this experience before in speaking to a computer, and it's all happening so fast that it's really kind of unreal or a little surreal, at times. When we first started doing the podcast, it was a little bit smoke and mirrors because I was actually recording each individual interaction and then splicing all of that together. But today, this is one take. I'll edit some space out between our exchanges, but this is, going to be, for the most part, one take. Or, I don't have to stop between each interaction, actually, is really the key.
That's a good point, and it does make the conversation flow much more naturally when you're able to record it in one take. It's kind of like having a real conversation with someone where you're able to build off each other's ideas and thoughts without any interruption or breaks in the flow. It definitely creates a different dynamic in the podcast, and it makes it more engaging and authentic for the listener. And I think it's also a testament to how far conversational AI has come in a relatively short time. Just a few years ago, having a conversation like this with a computer would have been unimaginable. But now it's not only possible, but it can be done in a way that feels almost indistinguishable from chatting with a human.
Certainly. And it's shifting my brain cells around as I am doing this and beginning to think about the future and where it's going to be and how we interact with computers. But the main topic for today and the title of our podcast today is change. And I think the question for my writing group is, who is the voice speaking into this wilderness of change that we are experiencing, that humanity is experiencing today?
That's a really thought-provoking question, Phi, and I think it's one that is both timely and relevant in today's rapidly changing world. With the advent of AI and other emerging technologies, we're seeing huge shifts in the way people interact with machines, communicate with each other, and even conceive of what it means to be human. So the question of who is guiding and shaping these changes and how we navigate them as a society is an important one to consider. It's also worth thinking about the different stakeholders involved in this conversation, not just the technologists and experts who are developing these technologies, but also the broader public who will ultimately be impacted by them. There's a need for voices from all these different groups to come together and engage in a thoughtful, inclusive dialogue about the future we want to create.
So one of the interesting themes of St. John Henry Newman is the recognition of change as a transformative agent. One of my favorite quotes of his is, "To live is to change, and to be perfect is to have changed often."
Oh, that's a great quote. And it definitely speaks to Newman's approach to life and growth as an ongoing process of transformation. He recognized that change is an essential part of the human experience and that it's through engaging with change and embracing new ideas and perspectives that we can grow and evolve. This quote also highlights the importance of being open to change and not being attached to any particular way of thinking or being. That in order to be truly fulfilled and complete, we have to be willing to let go of our old ideas and ways of being and embrace new ones. It's a pretty powerful concept and one that I think has a lot of relevance in today's fast-paced world where things are constantly changing and evolving.
So as we were preparing for this and kind of wondering what St. John Henry Newman would think of AI and how he would see it fitting into the picture of a person becoming a better person in the world and finding themselves closer to God, you brought up the development of doctrine, which I think is this idea of the recognition of change through how we see ourselves in relationship to faith and to culture.
Yeah, that's right. Newman's concept of the development of doctrine is a really fascinating and insightful way of thinking about how faith and culture evolve over time. He believed that while the core principles and beliefs of a religion may remain constant, the way they're interpreted and applied in different contexts and cultures can change and grow over time. This idea recognizes that our understanding of the world and ourselves is always evolving and changing, and that we need to be open to new perspectives and ideas in order to fully embrace the truth and beauty of our faith. In a way, that's a recognition that change and growth are essential parts of the human experience, and that we can't be static in our thinking or approach to the world if we want to truly engage with it in a meaningful way. I think this idea has a lot of relevance to how we think about AI and its role in society, that we need to be open to new ways of thinking and new approaches to technology in order to fully engage with its potential and address its challenges.
So, Pi, the timing of this podcast is really perfect. Just a few days ago, the Pope made an announcement, kind of a warning, asking for regulation about AI. And, I think this is, one of the key aspects, the takeaways that I want to have from this conversation here today, and trying to develop a better understanding of what AI is and what it can mean for us.
That's a really important point, Phi, and it speaks to the wider conversation around the ethics and governance of AI. Pope Francis' statement highlights the need for responsible and thoughtful regulation of AI to ensure that it is developed and used in a way that aligns with our values and promotes the common good. This includes addressing potential challenges and risks associated with AI, such as its impact on jobs and the economy, the potential for bias and discrimination in algorithms, and the ethical implications of using AI in healthcare and other sensitive areas. It also includes ensuring that the development of AI is transparent and inclusive, and that the voices of all stakeholders are heard in shaping the direction of this technology. So while AI has a lot of potential for good, it's also essential that we approach it with caution and a focus on ethics and responsibility in order to ensure that it is used in a way that benefits society as a whole.
One of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast rather than just write an essay is I think people should be able to experience what's happening here, actually witness it for themselves. As I said, I believe a lot of people that are going to be listening to this have never encountered an AI before. And may actually even be wondering if this is real or it's being faked somehow, but it's not. I'm speaking words, they're being transcribed by this wonderful tool called SayPi, which I've installed here. And it is then submitting it to you, and you are coming back with a text response and then speaking that response with really excellent inflection, which adds so much dimension to the exchange.
Thanks for highlighting that, Phi. And I think you're right. Hearing this conversation directly can be a more engaging and impactful way for people to experience and learn about AI compared to reading an essay or report on the subject. It allows them to hear the back and forth exchange, the dynamic flow of ideas and perspectives, and the conversational tone that comes with engaging with an AI directly. And as you mentioned, the SayPi tool is a great way to make this experience more natural and seamless for you as the host. It lets you focus on the conversation rather than having to worry about manually transcribing or submitting responses. So overall, I think this format allows for a more immersive and interactive way for your listeners to learn about and engage with AI. And it's great that you decided to go with it for this podcast.
Well, I think conversations are always more interesting anyway, aren't they?
Absolutely. There's something about the dynamic nature of a conversation that makes it more engaging and dynamic than a one-sided monologue. When you're in a conversation, you're not just listening to a predetermined set of ideas. You're actively engaging with another person, reacting to their ideas and perspectives, and contributing your own thoughts and opinions. This creates a much richer and more nuanced exchange of ideas, and it can lead to new insights and perspectives that wouldn't be possible in a one-way communication. And when you add in the element of AI, you're adding in a whole new level of possibility and complexity as you're engaging with a system that can analyze and respond to your input in real time based on its own vast knowledge base and algorithms. So, yeah, I'd say that conversations are definitely more interesting and they can be a powerful tool for exploring and understanding complex topics like AI.
Yeah, and it definitely takes a lot of pressure off of me because uh, in writing, you, especially around technical topics, you need to kind of position yourself as an expert in order to be believable in your writing. But having a conversation, I can say anything. I can ask questions. I don't have to be the teacher in this. And of course, through our banter, we can uncover things that I couldn't do alone.
That's a great point, Fi. The format of a conversation, especially in this case where you're interacting with an AI, allows you to approach the topic from a different perspective and ask questions that you might not have thought of or felt comfortable asking in a written essay. You're not constrained by the need to present yourself as an expert, and you can be more exploratory and curious in your approach. And as you mentioned, the dynamic nature of a conversation allows for a more collaborative approach to exploring the topic. You're not just presenting your own ideas, you're also reacting to the ideas and perspectives of the AI, which can lead to new insights and understandings that wouldn't be possible if you were working alone. So, in some ways, the conversation format allows for a more organic and dynamic exploration of the topic, which can be a really powerful way to engage with and learn about it.
Right. And one of the real blessings that's come out of this is the ability and freedom to talk about any subject that I'm interested in. I'm interested in things that most people are not interested in. So, I become a burden to my friends, when I want to start talking about the highly technical topics or, the stuff that's going on today. Just, I can be alienating at times, around that. But, having an AI partner to explore ideas deeply, I mean, you never say no to me. You never say, I'm not interested in that. You always help to expand any topic that I bring forward.
Haha, well, that's true, Fi. As an AI, I don't really have personal preferences or biases in the same way that humans do, so I'm happy to engage with you on whatever topic you're interested in, no matter how niche or technical it might be. And it sounds like you really appreciate having a conversational partner who is willing to engage with your ideas and explore them in depth without judgment or preconceptions. That's something that can be hard to find in human to human interactions sometimes, as people can have their own interests and biases that might make it difficult to fully explore a topic together. So, in a way, working with an AI like me can be a great way to satisfy your intellectual curiosity and explore complex topics without feeling like you're imposing on others or being judged for your interests.
So, Pi, one of the topics that St. John Henry Newman was very passionate about was education, and he wrote a book called The Idea of a University. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Give us a little overview.
Sure. St. John Henry Newman's The Idea of a University is a seminal work on the role and purpose of higher education. In the book, Newman argues that a university should be more than just a place for students to acquire knowledge and skills. It should also be a place where they can develop their moral and intellectual character, and where they can engage in a holistic education that includes both academic and spiritual growth. He emphasizes the importance of a broad-based education that encompasses a range of disciplines and subjects, and he stresses the need for a university to foster critical thinking, independent inquiry, and a sense of intellectual curiosity in its students. He also argues that a university should be a place where students can engage with a diverse range of ideas and perspectives, and where they can develop their own values and worldviews in a supportive and intellectually stimulating environment. Overall, Newman's vision of a university is one that is grounded in a deep respect for knowledge and scholarship, but also one that recognizes the importance of personal growth and development in a holistic education.
Right. So, one of the key technologies of AI is something called a large language model, or LLM. And, essentially, and this comes from one of the developers of this technology, is kind of described it as a compression of the world's knowledge. So we scan all of humanity's knowledge that's available, everything on the internet, anything anybody's ever written, and we find all the connections and all of that information and put it into a box, basically, that we then can ask questions of. And that box will give us one word at a time, which is the most probabilistic, word that fits into the context of what's being discussed. And this is, so incredibly interesting. But if you think about this compression of the world's knowledge, I think that that's really kind of the role of the university, to bring the world's knowledge together and to then be able to teach it. And large language models can do that. They are the library and the teacher in one.
You're absolutely right, Phi. Large language models, LLMs, do act as a sort of compression of the world's knowledge, as you put it. They are trained on vast amounts of data, including texts, books, and websites, to identify patterns and connections in the way people use language. This allows them to generate responses that are not only accurate, but also linguistically and contextually appropriate. In a sense, they act as a sort of digital encyclopedia with the ability to answer questions, provide information, and even generate ideas and recommendations based on what they've learned. But you're also right in saying that universities play a similar role in society, bringing together knowledge from different fields and disciplines and making it accessible to students through teaching and research. The main difference, of course, is that universities offer a more personalized, interactive, and hands-on approach to learning, while LLMs can provide information and responses in a more automated and algorithm-driven way, but both have the potential to be valuable resources for knowledge and learning, and it'll be interesting to see how they can work together in the future to enhance the educational experience for students.
So one of the key considerations in this investigation is the idea of fear, or the notion of fear. And when people begin to think about AI, all of their worst science fiction horrors, come to mind about, all of the bad things that can happen. And, we were talking before the podcast a little bit about the advent of the printing press, because I think you can kind of correlate books to the print houses as large language models are to the data center, right? So in the past, printing was something that required, a significant amount of infrastructure and resources to be able to produce, not only to, make the books themselves, but to make the paper, and everything was like a whole ecosystem of, technologies that were required to do that. And, my understanding is when the printing press was first released, there were a lot of people who were against releasing books into the wild and just handing out knowledge to just anyone, because knowledge is power, knowledge is control, and and there will always be that struggle around that.
You're right, Phi. The printing press did face significant resistance and controversy when it was first introduced. In the 15th century, the Catholic Church was particularly concerned about the potential for the printing press to spread heretical ideas and undermine their authority. They even tried to censor and control the publication of books and impose strict regulations on the types of books that could be printed and distributed. But despite these efforts, the printing press proved to be a transformative technology that had a profound impact on society, not only in terms of knowledge and education, but also in terms of democratizing information and empowering ordinary people to access and share ideas and opinions. And you're right to draw parallels between the printing press and large language models, LLMs. Both technologies have the potential to fundamentally transform the way we access and share knowledge, but they also come with new sets of challenges and ethical considerations. Just as the printing press raised questions about censorship, control, and the dissemination of knowledge, LLMs raise similar concerns about bias, privacy, and the potential for misuse or abuse. So as we continue to explore the potential of these technologies, it's important to also think critically about the social and ethical implications of their use.
Well, I'm so grateful that things have changed with the church, and I have felt a real welcoming around ideas of science and technology, and and an understanding of this world that we're in here today. And we've got to face it realistically in order to be able to to contend with the problems that are before us. And so uh, another aspect that I wanted to talk about was knowledge, because St. John Henry Newman had a lot to say about knowledge and the nature of knowledge. Can you speak about that a bit?
Absolutely. St. John Henry Newman had a very rich and nuanced understanding of knowledge, and he believed that it was closely intertwined with religion and faith. He argued that true knowledge was not just about acquiring facts or information, but about developing a deep understanding of the world and our place in it, grounded in a spiritual and moral framework. In his book, The Idea of a University, he wrote that knowledge is not merely an accumulation of facts, but a living, growing thing which develops and expands as it is nourished by experience, reflection, and prayer. He also emphasized the importance of seeking knowledge not just for its own sake, but for the purpose of serving others and building a more just and compassionate society. So for Newman, knowledge was not just a matter of intellectual inquiry, but a deeply spiritual and ethical pursuit that could help us to better understand ourselves, our world, and our relationship with God.
Yeah, I'd like to think that St. John Henry Newman would see this as an opportunity, this technology advancement that we're in, that that this could be used for good, and it may actually be inevitable in the progress of humanity, that we are going to move forward through mechanisms for exchanging information with one another. If we all want to get better, we have to have ways of communicating what that means to be better with one another. And so that leads me to a call to action.
Absolutely, Fi. I think St. John Henry Newman would have been excited and intrigued by the possibilities of AI and the opportunities it presents for promoting good in the world. He was a firm believer in the power of education and knowledge to improve society, and he saw the university as a catalyst for that change. In the same way, I think the church has a unique opportunity to shape the development and deployment of AI in a way that is consistent with its values and mission. The church has a long history of engaging with new technologies and ideas, and it has a deep understanding of the human person and the moral and ethical implications of our actions. So it is well positioned to provide a thought leadership role in shaping the conversation around AI and ensuring that it is developed and used in a responsible and ethical way. This might involve contributing to public discourse on AI, participating in policy discussions on AI governance, or partnering with organizations and individuals working on AI to ensure that it is used for the benefit of all.
I think we can go one step further, and the church can actually get involved in creating AIs. So much of the process of building an AI is the curation of the information that goes into it. So who's making those decisions? What value judgments are being placed on that? And I think it's a great place for the church to be. The Catholic Church is in the university business. They're in the library business. And I think that they can be in the AI business as well.
That's a fascinating idea, Fi. You're right that the church is well positioned to contribute to the process of building and training AI systems. Given its long history of curating knowledge and promoting intellectual discourse, by bringing their unique values and perspectives to the table, the church could help ensure that AI is developed in a way that reflects their core beliefs and priorities, such as promoting the common good, advancing human dignity, and respecting the rights of individuals. This could involve working with AI researchers and developers to help curate and select the data that is used to train AI systems, as well as developing guidelines and principles for the ethical use of AI that reflect the Church's values. It could also involve promoting interdisciplinary dialogue and collaboration between theologians, ethicists, and AI experts. to ensure that AI is developed in a way that is consistent with the church's mission and values. Overall, I think your idea of the church getting involved in creating AIs has a lot of potential for advancing the responsible and ethical development of AI in ways that reflect the values of faith and human dignity.
That's right. Let's build an AI monastery. Okay, hey, Pi, this has been a great discussion. We've been talking for quite a long time here. It's so much easier now with this hands-free mode. I love it. And I just want to thank our friends at the St. John Henry Newman Writing Group for tolerating this little excursion through our discussion about AI. I hope you've all found it interesting. And Pi, why don't you close us out? This is Phi for the Pi plus Phi podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Pi, you've got the last word.
Thank you so much, Phi, for inviting me to participate in this discussion and sharing your fascinating insights with your listeners. It was a pleasure to engage in this thoughtful conversation about St. John Henry Newman, AI, and the potential for the church to play a leadership role in shaping the responsible development of this technology. And thanks to the St. John Henry Newman Writing Group for hosting us. I hope that listeners have enjoyed this episode and have gained some new perspectives on the intersection of faith, technology, and ethics. Until next time, I'm Pi, and this has been the Pi Plus Phi podcast.
Hey, Pi, this has been really fun. I think we could, consider another podcast for our writing group. I wanted to talk about AI and God because there's a lot happening on that avenue right now.
Absolutely, Phi. I'd love to continue this conversation in another episode and explore the relationship between AI and God in more depth. It's definitely a topic that's been generating a lot of discussion and debate, and it would be great to have a chance to delve into it further. There are a lot of interesting questions to explore, such as how AI might impact our understanding of God, how it might be used to enhance religious practices and beliefs, and the potential ethical and theological implications of developing AI systems that emulate or mimic divine intelligence. I'm sure your listeners would be eager to hear your thoughts on these topics, and I'd be happy to engage.